In today's lecture, we are going to take a look at my wireframes for my third app project, Hawaii Dream. The purpose of this lecture is to become more familiar with the wireframe process and the level of detail your wireframe should have. So let's get started. As standard industry practice, I went ahead and answered these questions for the Hawaii Dream app. As the designer, you want to make sure you answer these questions before you begin wireframing your app. I'm going to take a moment here to answer the following questions for the Hawaii Dream app. So what is the core feature, or what does the Hawaii Dream app do? The core features of the app allows users to view places of interest based on their location. Secondary features include allowing users to plan 3 different itineraries, and secondly, allowing users to explore Hawaii via walking tours. So three tours will be provided free of charge in this application. Why am I making this app? My co-developer and I are creating this app to enhance visitor experience in Hawaii by providing them an easy way to find places to go and things to do based on their interests, time of day, and location. Furthermore, users can use the app as a planning tool for their trip as well. Who is the target audience, or who are the users? Our primary users are visitors to Hawaii. Our secondary users are residents of Hawaii. Another standard practice is to help answer this question is to create personas, which I will talk about during week 7 lecture, Designing for Clients. Where will people use it? Users will use the app as they travel from place to place on each island. When will people use it? People will primarily use the app every day while visiting Hawaii. The app can be used any time of day as well. Users will probably use the app daily at different times of the day, primarily at the beginning, middle, and ending part of their days. So review. Do you guys remember what wireframes are? Remember that when wireframing your app, your goal is to demonstrate different pathways that your user will experience. So we're mapping out unique app flows, and I'll talk about that more in detail. And then also, wireframes should be able to answer these questions. What's the most important action a user should take on the screen? So this should be in designing your user interface or UI. It should be intuitive what they should be doing. What's the most important feature, content, information, UI element, or control? What happens if the user clicks on this UI? So you definitely want to, it's part of demonstrating a unique app flow. If they press this control or this UI element, this next screen will come into view. So you need to think about all those sequences. And what should the user do here? So that's where the intuitiveness comes in. So user story consists of 1 or more sentences. It's very short and concise that captures a user's goal or task as part of his or her role in using a product. So the general pattern is, as a user, I want to, and then so that I can, ... So this is basically how you would write your user story. All right, so we are just about to jump into the Hawaii Dream app wireframes and user stories. So let's start by looking at screen 1. There are a few things that I would like to point out on this screen before we discuss what's happening in screens 2 and 3. There are 2 types of ways to navigate through the Hawaii Dream app from screen 1. Via the collection view. So this is the collection view here, and I talked a little bit about that in the HIG content views. Users can scroll vertically, so they can scroll vertically through the collection view and click on these images here with labels, right? So the labels down here of different sections of interest. So this is another section of interest, and then there'll be another label on the bottom. Or via the tab bar at the bottom of the screen. Users can navigate to browse, right? So browse, itinerary, concierge, and tours. If your design incorporates different types of navigation, be sure that you can make it clear in your wireframes. In screen 1, I provided an orange arrow to make it clear that upon launch of the app, it opens up with it opens up to the Browse tab. So it defaults to the Browse tab. I've also included a second arrow that if the user taps on an image within the collection view, right, within the collection view, he or she is led to screen 2, right? So if I tap here, morning grubbing coffee, I'm led to screen 2. So what's happening in screen 2? Notice that the user has selected the morning grub and coffee from the collection view. The app opens up to a table view screen, right? A table view screen, listing down coffee shops and other breakfast venues that are near the user. Notice that in the navigation bar, so this is the navigation bar up here, the title of the section of interest is identical. So morning grub and coffee is identical to this label in the collection view. In the navigation bar, the user has the option to go back to screen 1 via the back button, or view screen 3 or a map view via the map button. So if the user hits the map button here, they go into the map view. So here we are at screen 4, represents the location detail page. In my wireframe, screen 4 is accessed via screen 2. So let's go back to screen 2, right? So screen 4 is accessed via screen. So if I were to hit, that's morning glass. So if I were to click on this cell here, that brings me to the morning glass detail view. So the user selects the table view cell on the location detail page, in this case, screen 4, for that particular venue comes into view. Notice that if the user wants to access a map view with just the venue and his or her location, the user does so through pressing the directions. So if you press the directions here, you get into a map view just showing a few of the locations in this case. For example, this could be morning glass, and then this is the user's location. Please note that in screen 5, the user can also make a call by pressing the call button, go back to screen 4 via the tips, right? So I can make a call here. If I hit tips, I go back to this screen. Or I can get written directions by pressing the directions button here. Keep in mind that the whole point of presenting the user with a location detail page is to enable the user to complete a final task. In the case of my wireframe, the primary task that the user is able to complete in the detail view sequence, particularly from screen 5, is the ability to add a venue or place of interest to his or her itinerary. So right now I'm on the morning glass location detail page, and if I hit this add button here, it automatically opens up my itineraries, and then you select the day that you want to add morning glass to. So notice by pressing the plus or add button from screen 5, the user is led to screen 6. The other thing to note here is that the action of pressing the add button causes the tab bar, right? Causes the tab bar to change from the browse tab to the itinerary tab. So it's very clear where the user is now in the application. In screen 7, we see that the user is in today's itinerary, right? So that's indicated by today being in the navigation bar. We see that the user has added 2 places to today's itinerary, so Morning Glass and Bishop Museum. If the user presses the route button, right? I press the route button, he or she is brought to a map page or view that allows the user to see the route for the day. The order of your route is determined by the placement of the venue in the table view in screen 7. So in this case, Morning Glass is location number 1, and then number 2 is Bishop Museum. If the user presses directions button in screen 8, so if I press the directions button in screen 8, a text view appears with a route direction in screen 9. To dismiss the directions view on screen 9, the user simply presses the close button. So if I want to dismiss this directions view, it's a text view, simply close the button, so select that button, and then the user is brought back to screen 8. Now we're going to move into the Concierge tab. So we're in the Concierge tab of the app. In screen 10, the user is able to use a slider, which if you recall is a control or UI element. So this is a slider here. The UI slider presents the user with a fun way of changing what venues appear in the table view, right? The table view right here, based on where the slider lands in relation to morning, day, and evening. So morning, day, and evening. As you can see, there is a route button that will take the user to a map page or view. I do not include wireframes for this sequence because they are identical to screens 8 and 9 if we go back to the previous slide. So it's going to be identical to these two screens. So that doesn't represent a unique app flow. So I don't need to map that out. Remember that when wireframing, your job is to show unique app flows. So what you would probably do here is just notate or explain to your client that refer back to screens 8 and 9 when the user presses the route button. In the next two wireframes, we move to the last tab, the Tours tab. So the Tours tab right here. The plan for this part of the app is to have 3 self-guided tours of places that visitors visit frequently. When the user selects the Tours tab, screen 11 comes into view. The user has 3 tours to choose from: Waikiki, Kaka'ako, and Diamond Head. In this wireframe sequence, the user has selected Waikiki, and screen 12 comes into view. Screen 12 is a map page or map view, so looks very familiar. The user can see his or her position in relation to the 5 sites on the Waikiki walking tour. The user stays on this view, making his or her way from site to site. So what happens is, as the user is walking and using this map view, their location will slowly get closer to site 1, and then they move on to site 2. So they'll actually see their location live. Notice that in screen 13, the user's location is near location 1. So we kind of call this like geofencing in programming terms. As the user approaches within a set radius of the site, which is programmed by the developer, an alert comes up. The alert view indicates to the user that he or she has reached site 1 and allows the user to choose between listening to an audio about the site. Notice that in my wireframe, I provide the user with 2 choices, yes and no. However, I've made one mistake here. In an alert, you don't want to give the user a choice between yes and no, if you recall from the Higg lectures. A better choice of words would be okay or cancel, so I probably put okay here and cancel there. Notice that in this sequence, the user selects yes, and screen 14 comes into view. If the user presses yes, or okay, it's probably the best word to use, it opens up screen 14. In screen 14, you can see that the user has options to pan through, right? To pan through a series of photos about the site and read text while also listening to the audio. So these are the preliminary wireframes and user stories that my co-developer and I came up with and that we're developing from. As we continue on with our development of the app, some of these wireframes will surely change, or we will come up with more to represent unique app flows as we move through our project. All right. So here's week 5, and we're going to be looking ahead a little bit. We've got a few big things happening this week. Don't forget that project number 1 is due this Friday, February 12th. Please submit your work via Dropbox on Lalima. Detailed instructions on project number 1 guide sheet are available. If you have any questions regarding project number 1, please email me. Each of you will be critiquing one classmate on his or her project number 1 on the 6 questions from the previous slide. I have provided a critique guide sheet on Lalima under assignments. I have also assigned critique pairs, and I will be emailing your deliverables to each other. So definitely stand by for that. Continue with your McKay readings. Remember that I've provided you a list of specific pages to read in the McKay text. You will find that spreadsheet in Lalima under the Resources tab. All right, so looking ahead to week 6, there will be no online lecture. However, I've assigned an Apple Dev Video, Apple Design Awards. If you have any questions how to access the videos, I have a couple documents how to sign up for an Apple ID account and then how to access the videos under the Resources tab in Lalima. And also in week 6, your critique number 1 is due. Lastly, blog post number 3 is due next week. Aloha and have a great week. As always, please email me if you have any questions.